Okay, welcome to the deep dive. So let's picture this. We're heading into the classrooms in Nalgonda, Telangana. You'd usually expect chalk dust, maybe the buzz of kids learning.
Right. The usual sounds of a school day.
Exactly. But what actually happened there recently? Well, it was more like empty desks, unanswered questions. It turned into this whole, let's call it a classroom drama.
Yeah, it really did. And our mission today is to really dig into how this smart, logical plan, something aimed at making education fairer, just sort of spiraled
That rolled into what
into
exactly?
this bureaucratic standoff,
Yeah.
ended up with teachers, having their paychecks frozen. So we need to ask, why did they refuse the transfers? And what was the real cost of that refusal?
Right. And it boils down to this core conflict, doesn't it? The state needs to balance its teaching resources, spread the talent fairly,
hmm
but that bumps right up against teachers resisting being moved, from places they know. It's like big system logistics hitting very personal resistance.
And what's striking is how the plan itself, the strategy, seemed pretty fair, pretty transparent. It was really designed to fix an imbalance.
So let's unpack that strategy. This transfer plan, it kicked off back in September. The idea was simple, right? Move teachers from schools that had maybe too many to schools that desperately needed them.
Exactly. An equity move. Make sure every kid gets attention.
And they had specific criteria for who got moved. It wasn't random.
Oh, definitely not random. It was very data-driven. The
Mhm.
sources are clear on this. In primary schools, for instance, if you had, say, more than one teacher for every 30 kids, that school was considered overstaffed.
Okay, so a simple ratio makes sense.
Yeah, flags went up if that ratio was hit.
Yeah.
They were trying to address it right at that primary level.
And what about the higher grades? High schools.
Similar logic. In high schools, if there were multiple teachers for the same subject, not counting the headmaster, of course, then that subject area was seen as having surplus capacity.
So the system was basically designed to, take from the haves and give to the have-nots in terms of teaching resources.
Precisely. Share the wealth, essentially. Plug the gaps in those under-resourced schools.
Okay, so the plan is logical. How did they roll it out?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The initial rollout was fast, like incredibly fast. On September 18th, the Nalgonda collector issues this order, order number 4683.
And it affected quite a few people.
Oh, yeah. We're talking around 270 educators, school assistants, SGTs, others shuffled around in just 2 rounds.
Wow, 270. That's significant. And what were the instructions? Pack your bags over the weekend.
Not even. The order was basically, get relief from your current job and report to the new one that same day.
The same day, seriously?
Yes, instantaneous compliance. The idea presumably was zero disruption for the students. Get that talent moved immediately.
Okay, I can see the logic for the system for the kids, but
Mm.
wow, that's a huge demand on the teachers, personally.
It absolutely is. And that's a critical point, about change management. Demanding that kind of immediate high-impact change, even for a good reason, causes massive friction.
I mean, just think about it. Families, commutes, maybe their own kids in local schools, getting told in the morning you have to be somewhere else entirely by afternoon.
Exactly. While commendably, most of the 270 did comply, you have to acknowledge the sheer difficulty of that ask. The district was clearly prioritizing the educational need over, well, personal stability.
And that tension, it didn't take long to boil over, did it?
Not at all. Fast forward just a few weeks, early October rolls around, and the plan hits a major snag.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty big group, 68 teachers, basically said no.
68 just refused to move.
Yep. Dug in their heels, refused the transfer, resisted the state's order, and suddenly the administration has this huge problem on its hands.
Okay, so 68 teachers refusing. That forces the administration's hand. They have to enforce it, right? What do they do first?
Right, they had to react. So the timeline here is quite specific. On October 4th, the DEO, there's the district education officer, the top education official there, gets involved. They tell the local administrators, the mantle education officers and the headmasters, to get a list together, a list of everyone who hadn't shown up at their new post. And they wanted it fast within 48 hours.
A mandal is like a local district or township, right?
Essentially, yeah, an
Mhm.
administrative subdivision.
Yeah.
So they were starting the official process, building the paper trail for accountability.
Okay, so they identify the holdouts quickly, TikTok. But then did the enforcement keep that same rapid pace?
Ah, well, that seems to be where things slowed down. Just when you'd expect quick action, there was a bit of a delay.
So what happened next after the list was compiled?
The next big step was on October 10th. They issued show cause notices to those 68 teachers.
Show cause notices, what does that mean exactly?
It's basically a formal demand to explain why disciplinary action shouldn't be taken against you. And these weren't just casual warnings. They specifically referenced the CCA Rules 1991.
CCA rules, that sounds serious.
It is. It's the Civil Service Disciplinary Code for the state. So, the notice gave them a very strict 2-day deadline to comply or face, and I quote, full-blown disciplinary action.
Okay, so a serious threat backed by official rules. That should have worked, shouldn't it?
You'd think so. But here's maybe the crucial flaw we talked about. They issued the threat on October 10th, but then the actual consequence, the disciplinary action, didn't follow immediately.
So there was a gap between the threat and, well, any actual teeth.
Exactly. That administrative pause, that void, essentially created a window where defiance could fester, maybe even feel less risky.
It's almost like a psychological game, isn't it? If you make a big threat but don't follow through right away.
The threat loses its power. Its credibility erodes, and that's what seems to have happened. The standoff just dragged on for weeks.
And the cost wasn't just administrative headaches, right? This had real impact in the schools.
Absolutely. The real cost was borne by the students. We hear about several schools across different mandals being left completely in the lurch, as you said.
So the whole point of the transfer, getting teachers to kids who needed them, was being defeated by this standoff.
Completely undermined. You had classrooms where learning just stopped. Kids literally sitting there, waiting for a teacher who was assigned but refused to show up, twiddling their thumbs, as the saying goes.
So that initial speed, that September 18th order, it was all undone by this inertia, this lack of follow-through after the October 10th notices.
It seems that way. The lack of immediate consequences allowed the resistance to harden. And eventually, it attracted public attention.
Right, which brings us to November. There was an article, wasn't there, November 6th?
Yes, exactly. A Spotlight article really blew the lid off the situation.
Yeah.
It didn't just point fingers at the teachers who were refusing to move.
No. Who else did it focus on?
It heavily criticized the district administration for what it called their radio silence, their failure to act decisively after issuing those serious show cause notices back in October.
So public pressure starts mounting on the administrators themselves.
Precisely. And that public scrutiny seemed to force their hand. They had to pivot, show they were taking control.
And by this point, were all 68 teachers still holding out?
Thankfully, no. The number had dropped. But there were still 6 individuals, 6 very stubborn teachers who, weeks after the deadline, still hadn't reported to their new posts.
Just 6.
Yep.
But those 6 were causing significant problems, I imagine. Damaging the district's plan, leaving kids without teachers?
Immense problems.
Yeah.
So the authorities realized the threats weren't enough. They needed something definitive, something with immediate impact.
So what was the final move, the big one?
They went for the wallet. They announced that the November salaries for those 6 teachers were being put on ice, suspended, completely withheld.
No pay until you show up for work.
Exactly. A clear, unambiguous, and crucially immediate financial consequence. No more warnings, no more delays. This showed the system finally meant business.
That's definitely decisive, but it does make you wonder about the timing, doesn't it? Why wait until November?
It really does. And that delay is precisely what a prominent teachers union pointed to as the core problem.
Oh, interesting. What was the union's take on it?
Their argument was basically this.
Mm-hmm.
The policy itself, the transfer idea, wasn't the main issue. The real problem was the administration dragging its feet on enforcement.
So what did they suggest should have happened?
They argued that if teachers didn't report by the deadline, which was effectively October 12th, after the 2-day show cause period, they should have been marked absent immediately and maybe face financial penalties right then and there.
Like docking pay from mid-October onwards?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Their point was about maintaining the integrity of the policy. You issue a rule, you issue a deadline, you have to enforce it immediately and predictably.
Otherwise, you're almost inviting people to test the boundaries, right? Waiting a month and a half to freeze salaries. It sends a mixed message.
Exactly. It inadvertently might encourage defiance, or at least make it seem like there's wiggle room. This Nalgonda situation becomes a kind of case study in that.
The case study in
What?
administrative follow-through.
Pretty much. The policy's logic, distributing teachers fairly, that was sound. The goal was equitable. But the implementation stumbled because that immediate, predictable accountability wasn't there initially.
So the big takeaway then isn't just about having a fair plan for resources,
No, it's more than that. It's about balancing that resource allocation, getting teachers where they're needed with balancing responsibility.
meaning ensuring people actually follow through on their assignments without these huge delays.
Right. You need both sides of the equation. Fairness in the plan and discipline in the execution. Equity and compliance have to go hand in hand, and that relies heavily on the administration acting decisively.
So when they finally froze those salaries in November,
That sent the message. The system's needs, the student's education had to come first. It ultimately trumped an individual's desire to stay put in a familiar place. The policy's success wasn't just about its design. It was about the speed and certainty of enforcement.
it's definitely something for you, the listener, to think about, especially when you see these large-scale plans roll out. Where does that line fall? The need for organizational efficiency versus, individual comfort or routine.
Yeah, when does that understandable desire for stability outweigh the fundamental right of a student to actually have a teacher walk into their classroom on day one?
And thinking back to that union's point about October 12th, it makes you wonder.
It really does. And maybe this is the final thought to leave you with. Is there some optimal timing? A research-backed sweet spot between issuing a warning and implementing a real consequence?
You mean a way to maximize compliance without letting things drag into a crisis?
Exactly. What kind of preventative measures, focused purely on the timing of enforcement, could help keep these essential education logistics running smoothly, especially across big areas with lots of schools and teachers? Something to mull over.
Indeed. Until next time, keep exploring the logistics behind the headlines.
Catch you on the next Deep Dive.